So why do an acne series at all? Well, I wanted to do an acne series for two main reasons. The first reason is that, honestly, I couldn't find any information out there that I was happy with to recommend to my patients. And I thought that if I could put something else out there, it would not only help my patients, but also other people out there starting on their acne journey. The second reason was that I wanted to make sure that we normalized acne. We are told over and over that we should be perfect, we should be flawless. The reality is we're not. We need to know when acne is okay and when it is not okay, so that you know when to treat it, what to do, and when to seek help. Pretty much all of us will get acne at some stage of our lives. The reason being is that acne is a visual representation of hormonal changes that are happening inside of us. We need those changes to happen in order to develop as human beings. Depending on when you experience your acne, there are different hormonal changes that are going on. And if acne is being experienced at a very, very young age, such as 7 or below, or being experienced at 30 and above, there can be some changes that need to be investigated and possibly managed, as it may be an abnormal response. But most other circumstances, this is a natural phase of your life. So we do classify acne, mild, moderate, or severe types of acne, but we can also classify it based on the time of life in which this is occurring. So for example, there is infantile acne, which occurs from 6 weeks of age to a year of life. There is prepubertal acne, which happens 7 years and under, and there is adolescent acne, which happens during our teenage years. Not surprisingly, that type of acne is the most common because we're going through our largest hormonal change at that time. Why? It's normal because our bodies are going through changes due to increased hormonal production. Now, we need these hormones in order to develop as human beings. Acne is just a visual representation of what's going on. Some of us are lucky in that we don't get much acne, whereas others of us are a little bit more unlucky that we get a bit more acne. But it's normal. We're not dirty, we're not eating the wrong things, we're not doing the wrong things. This is something that was always going to happen. And while there are lifestyle changes that you can make that can improve it, there is actually some physiological things that we need to address in the skin in order to improve this. All types of acne are governed by 4 factors. The first is that increased stickiness between the skin cells and increased shedding on the outside of both the hair follicle and also the skin lining of the lumen. And number 2 is going to be the increased oil production. Just because you have oil production doesn't necessarily mean you have inflammation. So number 3 is you have bacteria inside this oil gland which proliferate and are pro-inflammatory, called C. acnes or Cutibacteria acnes. Now this type of bacteria is inherited from our parents when we're born, and certain genetic strains of it may predispose you to having this severe type of acne. And it's impossible to know with our current technology which form you have. So depending on how fast it's accumulating, we may focus on this more than in other types of acne. The final factor that's going on here is an increased inflammatory response. You are getting a lot of positive feedback loops. Small bits of inflammation lead to more inflammation, which leads to a greater amount of inflammation, which leads to more and more and more acne. We need to break that cycle and decrease down the nervousness of our inflammatory cycle so that we can temper that snowball effect. Categories of acne. There are 3 main descriptive categories of acne: mild, moderate, and severe. Obviously, there are grey areas in between: mild to moderate, moderate to severe. And these are visual descriptors of the severity of your acne. But within these categories are different types of acne spots. We have the microcomedone, we have the macrocomedone, we have the papule-pustule, and the nodule cyst. The pilosebaceous unit. Now, this is a normal physiological thing that exists in our skin. However, in acne, it's not behaving normally. Now, if this little mother sucker is causing such dramas, well, why do we need it? Fundamentally, it's a communication between the deeper layers of our skin and the outside of our skin for a hair follicle to exit. Now, that hair follicle can get stuck, And so it needs oil glands and shedding skin cells in order to come out safely and not cause problems. However, in acne, we're getting an abnormal production of oil, we're getting stickiness of those skin cells, and we are getting a blockage forming at the top of our pore. What we can see on the outside of our skin are pores, and comedones are what's forming when our skin cells stick together. And when it starts at a very, very small level, they're called microcomedones. And when that progresses into a larger form, they're called macrocomedones. Most of us would call these blackheads. And blackheads are a different type of stickiness altogether. It's not that the rate of oil secretions are particularly fast, but that they're accumulating and sticking together at such a rate that there is no shedding, and they are really stuck and swelling that pore gland. Now, our pores don't enlarge, they swell or contract. And so it's a bit of a myth that we actually get enlarged pores over time, but you do get more swollen pores at different stages of your life. You can imagine though, if the stickiness wasn't the only problem and we had a lot of increased oil production, there would be some different changes occurring underneath the skin. And that's when we're going to go on to papular-pustular type of acne. If we move the model this way, you can see now that the predominant feature is this whitehead. Whiteheads are pus, and pus is an accumulation of skin dead immune cells. So this is not actually filled with bacteria, although there are bacteria in there. Predominantly what you're seeing as pus is your immune system that's come in, fought a valiant battle, and died. Now, this is still trapped underneath the skin surface, and it's looking for a communication to get out in order to release the pressure. Otherwise, this swelling continues to happen and eventually will rupture into the skin, which is going to cause more damage and scarring. So as it forms pressure up on the top layers of our skin, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and the idea is that this will spontaneously burst and release its pressure up on top. It is very, very tempting to squeeze this type of acne, but your fingers cannot get down to the deep parts down here. And if you squeeze down this way, sure, you'll get a satisfying pop-up that way, but a majority of this debris will shoot into the skin, the very thing your skin has been working very, very hard to avoid, and that will lead to severe scarring. So while it's tempting to do it, please, please do not squeeze your acne. If you get very, very rapid progression of swelling of this oil gland, and you also get a quick accumulation of debris that plugs, the rate of swelling can be so quick that you are going to get rupture no matter what happens. And that type of acne is called nodular cystic acne. Unfortunately, with that type of acne, it is beyond the ability of over-the-counter products to manage, and we need to control lots of different factors in order to get it down to where it's not going to cause scarring anymore. So now we have lots of different forms of acne happening at lots of different stages of life, but the mechanism by which acne is made is still that pilosebaceous unit. That does not change. So the fundamental principles by how we tackle it remain the same. Sure, you're going to choose something maybe not as aggressive in an infant as you would as an adult, but we're still going after those 4 principles in some way, shape, or form.